Hello and welcome to Franki's Open Mic Fam. I'm Haleigh Overseth, and I've got my friend Alecia Maximo to co-host with me. And our guest today, hello. We've got Tylee Gooderham. Hello, Tylee. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Haleigh. Hi, Alecia. Thanks for having me on. So great to talk to you guys.
Excited. I'm excited to talk to you. So now, for those at home who may not know or may not have read the description yet, Tylee is a energy work practitioner, and you have a various different tools in your toolkit, if you will, right? So for the folks watching at home who may not necessarily be familiar with things like the quantum hypnosis or quantum healing hypnosis technique that you do practice, or Reiki, or the kinesiology. Oh, that one's a hard word for me to say sometimes.
AK.
It's a tongue twister.
It's a tongue twister. It is.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to give an intro? Yeah. So
go for it. It's your turn.
Yeah, the QHHT stuff. That's kind of a derived protocol from those of you who may know Dolores Cannon, who passed away in 2016. She was a hypnotherapist that brought people back into past lives and worked through their issues, whatever they had, and developed this protocol that seemed to be a bit specialized. And she found that the people that she put into this state, which is a theta state, which is a little bit deeper than a typical hypnotherapist would take somebody, she found that those that got into that state, and she could always do it because she just developed this craft over time, would be in what she calls the somnambulistic. And I've never heard the word before, but it's a place where the client is mentally in this trance state, and they are in the past life and recalling in real time. So you can question back and forth as if they are that person. So you can say, well, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you doing? Are you a being? Are you a corporeal machine? Are you a machine? Are you a plant? And you can talk back and forth, navigate them through the past lives.
Isn't that that's something I would love? Like, can I please go to the lifetime line where I am a redwood tree in California or something like that?
Yeah.
That's been for the last 150 years.
And that's happened very often, as according to her, we go through many stages of reincarnation of like rocks, of plant life, of sprites, of elementals, of all kinds of life. And if only for a few moments at a time. There was a story that she reclaimed that was she had brought somebody back to a time where they were a rock. And I'm like, well, how do you kind of translate that in your mind? What's your life like? Well, the person recalled being very happy and very, very content at the stillness and the solitude, but the beauty around him at the time. And I'm like, well, that's a mind-blowing concept. So that what this does is kind of reinforce the idea that everything has consciousness. Rocks have consciousness. We know crystals do, but why wouldn't a rock? And then another recollection of her having brought somebody back who came back as a stalk of corn, and their enjoyment was the wind blowing through the, their leaves, and the sun beaming on the, so it seemed that their lifetime seemed to be fleeting. It was a very, very short time. So the life of the actual vegetable, or the corn cob, was a certain duration, but his experience or her experience in that consciousness was very short, because that's all they needed to experience. So I'm not sure how
that's just such an interesting thing to me, right? Because we as humans, of course, have that capacity whenever we choose to. And sometimes when we are, accidentally just in a nice enough state of being to notice it, we can appreciate things like that, like the wind blowing across our face and feeling that energy, the sun beating down on you, right? And like when you say that, talking about like experiencing the consciousness of being a rock, I just think, what a nice thing to have no other responsibilities but to just sit there and look at how nice things are. Don't we all want that as humans?
Right.
I want to be a rock and just sit.
Right. I always heard like reincarnation as far as within like animals, birds, and other things that are alive or have a heartbeat. But hearing as far as the actual object, as far as a rock or a corn, is so fascinating to me. And like
Exactly.
the way that you describe it makes sense where it could be anything as far as relating to the wind blowing through your hair to the wind blowing through your leaves as far as being a corn. So that's so fascinating.
Isn't that beautiful though?
Yeah.
And it really gives you an appreciation for not only what you are, but everything
Mhm.
around you. That, you know, the things around you that you would typically, you know, knock over, ignore, take for granted are
Mhm.
actually conscious at some level.
Mhm.
So it really gives you a little bit more of appreciation.
Yeah.
And there was instances where a client had been non-corporeal, non-physical in any way. He was or she was awareness. So they were awareness out in space. In one case, in one of the books, she talks about being this. It's hard to condense, but it was this being that was preparing the water for the earth. So the water was
Like
brought.
building a planet, like from Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Yes.
Galaxy, where they're in the
Yeah.
planet building space, and the guy's
Yes.
like, "Oh, I made those fjords in Norway. I loved those."
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It was actually before a stage like that where the water was out in
Right.
space, and this being was preparing the water for transplant onto the earth. So getting the chemical nature of it ready to
Getting
be
like
brought.
the organics and the atoms of
Yeah.
what will
Yes.
make Earth water together.
Yes.
That fascinates me. I'm going to need to research more on that.
Yep.
That's very
Definitely.
interesting.
She's got a good load of books on these sessions. That's what I like about the books. They're actual live sessions of her with the client, and the client, you know, her questions to the client relaying back what they see, feel, and hear.
Well,
Yeah,
obviously with you and your own work and working with clients with this same technique, you can't necessarily get into specifics, of course. But can you maybe talk a little bit about, for those again who might not be familiar with the kind of things that maybe you ask or that come up,
yeah.
like what are some of the things that you have experienced in doing this kind of technique and this practicing in your clients? The kind of, maybe if you can give us some examples of some of the more interesting experiences that you've been able to kind of help people navigate.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot. Let me just give you a little bit of an overview of what actually takes place when a session occurs. So a first session with somebody would be about 5 to 6 hours in length, because there's an interview process that takes place ahead of time, and that's a very important time in the whole session, because my actions as part of the practitioner, I have to submit subliminal messages saying that you're going to talk to your higher self. Now, at a high level, this QHHT, the idea of it is that we navigate you through past lives, bubble up any important information, and then get to the end where we talk to your higher self. And this is where the the fun begins, because you bring with you a sheet of concerns, questions, and physical ailments that you want addressed. And when I say addressed, I mean fixed. Like you could have chronic eye issues, hip issues, joint, you know, anything with your body. And you can ask your higher self to fix it. And according to according to Dolores, there was nothing that cannot be fixed. Now, if you want to wrap your head around that, you're going to jump to things like, well, what about an amputee situation? Which is the first thing I did. I'm like, she says that they say that they will fix it. And I don't know how that works. I've never seen that happen. But there was a situation where a client came in and she had, I just want my wrinkles removed. I want the pain in the back of my head, my eyes are starting to go completely south. Can you fix that? And the higher self said, sure, fixed, right? It's instant. In some cases it's not, but so the idea was the 3-hour interview at the beginning. which allows me to understand, any childhood issues that may come up, because you can see recurring patterns with the people they're involved with now, the experiences they had, perhaps traumatic, that are recurring in the lifetimes that we end up going to. And then that information, it becomes useful for me to help navigate this being in whatever form they were in that life through it, ultimately to get to the higher self at the end. But these pieces, as they come up through these lives, are helpful because we can maybe heal things right then and there. Now, the whole process is all recorded, and we send the clients home with the full recording of the session, with the instructions that you listen to this multiple times, because the higher self, and the beings that they have been in those past lives are relaying information back. And when they come out of the session, they may not remember a lot. Although now, I think we might have talked about this in the past, but now people are at such a high level of consciousness that they don't go into a complete trance and forget everything when they come out. They're actually
a lot more of that conscious channeling that that is something that you've seen like other channelers kind of move into, from what used to be sort of dropping out completely. The Haleigh consciousness like has to go to sleep and go elsewhere for this other consciousness to channel through, right? But now people are shifting, and humanity, and we're kind of having that ability to hold the space of both of those personalities consciously, right? And be a little bit more present for the conversation happening from the higher self or other entities.
Yep, very well put. That's exactly what happens now, because we're just such a higher consciousness. We've raised our vibration to such a point where stepping away from the whole, like switching over to allow some other frequency to channel through you, is not necessary anymore, because they used to be such a vast difference between our frequency and their frequency that we had to step out of the way. Now we're actually closer in frequency, so we can kind of hang out during that time. So,
which is, a little bit of yay us, humanity. We're doing better than we think we are. We've gotten to that point. So, and this is great sort of validation or confirmation, I think, for folks who might be looking for more silver linings or more positive sort of things to look at, right? Like, as much as we as humanity are aware, very highly aware of the things that we could be improving and the things that are still less than desired, right? Poverty, war, the bigger, grander things that are, the issues we focus on our planet, pollution, things like that. Like, we actually are getting to a really good place with our energy and our capacity to communicate with our higher selves, and communicate with the parts of us that have the solutions, right? So, but it starts on this individual level, and the process that you're talking about that you're doing. So I just quick pause. Yay, humanity! Like, we're doing better.
Yay, humanity!
We are.
And you can see evidence of that. If you look onto the news. I don't watch the news, and I don't recommend anybody does. But you'll see on feeds now a lot now about orbs coming, spacecraft being spotted. And
the drones, right, Alecia? We were
drones,
just talking. Everybody wants to talk about drones.
Put the aliens in the ocean, all that jazz.
And that's how disclosure occurs, is that they're going to show more spacecraft hovering over the oceans in a non-threatening way. They're just going to be out there. They're not going to be doing much, but it gets us used to the idea that these guys are here. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to give us time to acclimate to them being here. And that brings up our awareness of them and raises our frequency. Most of us, those who are in denial, are going to kind of shift into a different earth pretty soon. And then we're going to separate away. And that's fine, because that's just not where they are. They're not here.
Everyone's on their own journey. You got to let them have that. It's, everything on the buffet of the universe has to be available. You can't remove any of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to, and we have to be okay with that, because we may be associated and maybe family members, you know, the friends, family members, but that's just part of the growing up in the spiritual path, right? That's just, we know that.
Yeah.
But to get back to the QHHT, so that's what we do, the 3-hour interview, and then navigate them through a series of, you know, past lives, anything that seems relevant. You kind of feel it through. And then at the end, may I speak to the higher self of, you know, Joanna? Oh yeah, let's do it. And so higher self comes in. It's a really kind of a fun thing. And the client would have come with a list of questions and a list of possibly ailments that they want addressed. So I would say, first of all, why did you bring this person? Why did you show us those lives? Because actually the higher self is navigating this whole thing. When they come to a practitioner like myself, the intention of the individual comes, and the higher self knows why they're coming, and knows what's going to happen. So, okay, we put them down, and the higher self, when I bring them to a past life, it's not a specific one. It's one driven by the higher self. And so then, you know, the question is, why did you show us that one? Okay, what did they learn from it? And what does it relate to in their present life? And ask those kinds of questions. And then we say, okay, well, Joanna had these questions about things that she'd like addressed. Is it okay to go through these? Oh yeah, go ahead. Okay, so, you know, she's had this right eye issue. She's losing sight in it. Can you tell me about that? And the higher self will dig in and kind of come up with why that issue is there. And there's usually very metaphorical reasons for these ailments that we have. Like the sight in the right eye is because they did not want to look forward into the future at certain things. They were in denial about various things that this person spent a long time looking at. So the eye went south to reflect the denial of looking forward. So the higher self will reveal that and say, but I'm going to fix that now. She's learned her lesson. There's no karmic cost. So we're going to fix that right now. And I'm like, well, great. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Is there any more? Oh yeah, there's more. There's something we found in her bladder. There's like this and that, and I'm fixing that and moving to, and great. This is cool. And then I asked them to do a body scan, like just a tip to tail scan of the body. If there's anything you find that you can fix, could you please go ahead? And they do. And then we go through the list of questions that the person might have brought that they just have about general things. Now, here's an interesting thing that I learned yesterday. One person,
I love it. We get to learn like brand new stuff. I like this.
Well, it's
exclusive.
It's new for me too, because I thought it was really interesting. A client came to one of the practitioners with the things that I mentioned, you know, personal things that they wanted worked on, but also my car is acting up and it's not working properly. Is it okay to ask for, you know, correction on my car? And my CD player, this old woman brought this, and that's the first for me. I didn't know you could kind of ask the higher self to fix.
Okay, this goes back to something that I was having a silly thought about writing a story about, like a apartment building in New York that was sentient, and you could ask to fix its own radiators so that the super didn't have to do it, right? But like everything does have consciousness, and everything is consciousness. So in theory, you know, you should be able to, and if your cells have their own innate intelligence and can correct themselves, and your higher self can be allowed to correct whatever cellular structure needs to be corrected, why wouldn't you be able to do that for any physical object? Because we're all made out of the same atoms and the same stuff and the same molecules that went into the water that comprises most of our body, right? I mean,
that's all I'm saying.
Right?
I love the again, just the validation you get to have in that you get to experience and see that.
Yeah. And what that, again, you know, what this does is it kind of reinforces the idea that you need to pay attention to and have gratitude for all these things that are around us. A build, like you just mentioned, Haleigh, the building that might be having problems with the electrical system, the fire, or the, all those, the radiator. Yeah, you can, send energy to it and ask it, could you maybe fix this thing in unit 3B? Because, I really appreciate all the years of hard work and love that you've given us. Could you, do that?
Like, I appreciate the outlet in my bathroom very much. I like plugging my blow dryer in and drying my hair.
Sure.
But that, can we fix the breaker that likes to trip because I don't know what's going on with the short circuitry there? Like, can we correct that? Thank you.
In my mind, I'm looking at the people that might be watching this, and even though they're like way up here in the spiritual categories, they're like, really? Yeah,
you're talking about. I mean, come on, right? It's all part of the human experience, and why not incorporate all of it, right? That's a whole conversation we can have about the perspective of spirituality and how we kind of take it a little too seriously. Right.
Of course. I was going to say, this is the first time I'm learning about where you can ask physical things instead of just being on the spiritual level. So you speaking about that, and then the example that you did with the building. Now I'm really heightened aware of like, okay, does that add to our cell phones? Does it add to technology as well? And asking for certain signs or to receive a certain email, and then going further down that line as well. So very, very cool stuff you got going on, Tylee.
Yeah, but and here's something else, I guess, on top of that. So now that we're having this conversation, you would ask the building or the electrical appliances that you're trying to interact with. You would ask them with a full heart, with your heart chakra kind of loaded up, because you want them to recognize the love and the gratitude. Well, what does that do to you? I mean, that raises your vibration, because your heart chakras is really, your upper chakras are lit up, because you're trying to interact with higher level consciousness at this point, and you are. So you can't just say, you stupid radio, like, I can't believe you. You're not going to get anywhere that way. We do that now. It doesn't do anything. But interacting in the way that we're just talking about raises your own consciousness. Now, one of the other things that comes out of these QHHT sessions and in all of her books is that the body is a universe, and your soul is the God of this universe. So when you have ailments of any sort, we have a tendency to say, maybe you don't like your hair, maybe you don't like your hands because they're getting a little bit hurty over the years, right? And you start cursing them. Well, they're going to get worse, and your hair is going to get worse. And you don't like your nose or whatever. So when you talk negatively to parts of your body or your body in general, it's going to react that way. You need to love your body. And I'm talking not just the external features. I'm talking about the internal major organs that are working really, really hard for you, that you take for granted. Your lungs, your liver, your gut.
Heart that beats all day long. Whether you ask it, it just does it.
Overtime.
Overtime all day just does it. No, thank you. It's a thankless job just running this body and breathing it all day, and all the neurons just do it. Like, we're up here spinning all day long. We are.
And we take it for granted, right? We just wake up and use it, and then we go back to bed. And if something hurts, then we complain. And that's just not the way to do it. When you wake up, you've got to appreciate all the stuff that's going on in this magnificent package, right? Because everything's working, and it's just amazing that this thing is the way it is. Like, when you start to understand even basic anatomy, it's mind-blowing what's going on. So have appreciation for it. Understand that your appreciation is going to lighten it all up and fix the problems. So anyway, that's kind of the idea of the QHHT session. Now, what I do, I also do applied kinesiology, otherwise known as muscle testing.
Yes, you're going to have to, muscle testing. You're going to have to explain a little bit more about that
Sure.
And how that ties into the other work that you do. I mean, everything is connected, right? So like, I do appreciate that you have that physical biology, like training and information, because you can incorporate those things into the energy work you're doing.
Yeah.
So I would love to learn, like, tell me a little bit more about this muscle testing and what it is and what it does.
Sure. Well, so the body has a tendency to understand stress very well. And when the body is under stress, well, let me back up a bit. The Chinese have figured out thousands of years ago that there's an energy system in our body that causes that energies flow in particular directions on a continuous 24-hour basis. And at a really simplistic level, when you throw a rock in the river kind of slows down and gets obstructed around that rock. It finds its way, but that's the energy in our body. So when we're feeling pain, there's a rock in that flow of energy, and the energy is doing something in this area, wherever the pain is. And as a practitioner, it's our job to figure out where that is and release it. So muscle testing is a way for the body, for us to interact with the body on a binary basis. So we would stress the body with a lie, because the body does not like lies. It stresses out.
Okay.
This is why lie detectors work. We've got a mechanical version that can detect what we're talking about here.
Right.
But
this is very interesting to me. So like when you say test the body with a lie, can you give an example?
Yes. So I will, for a person that I'd have here, I would say, okay, I want you to say a truth. And when you say a truth, we test the body. In one case, we'll just test a strong muscle, like anterior deltoid. When you would hold your arm out, and I would apply some pressure by the end, just a light, 2 pounds of pressure. And if you can hold it there after saying a statement, then that statement is either true or it's false. And you would say, my name is Haleigh. Okay. And I would test immediately within about 2 or 3 seconds of the statement. Your body says, nah, that's truth. I like truth. And all the energies are flowing and everything's perfect. And then that's when I would test. And then I would have you say, my name's John. Well, there's a lie. Ugh. And then your energy flow is reduced, because that's a stress on the body. It's a lie. That's wrong. There's something going, that's not coherent with the energies in the body. So we test any muscle in the body this way by making statements. And so now when I do a validation of, the true false, that I can actually use, I'm using the right muscle to get, a readout, then I will start to ask things like, you can ask anything you want, because the body knows everything about everything it's ever encountered and ever will encounter. It knows when it was wounded in any way, in any life, and it knows in what order it needs to be repaired for that wound. So I'll say, okay, do you have any wounds, any issues that we need to deal with today? And that'll go strong. I'm like, okay, great. Is it a structural issue? Is it an emotional issue? And I'll go through a category of high level points.
Figuring out where do you need to start. Start with it, because if you start at the wrong, this is a little bit the interesting part of this for me, and the thing that does not get noticed in our current healthcare system, sick care system, if I can, right,
of course,
that we're all aware of. The idea that, you put a Band-Aid on something and it's not getting to the root cause, and what I think people are finding when it comes to that kind of thing, taking antidepressants, like, yes, it can be helpful, but at some point it can be something that is preventing you from recognizing the actual root cause. And those medications stop working, because that thing that needs to be addressed, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever, and from whatever life, still needs to be addressed, whether you have chemically given yourself a Band-Aid for it or not. Right.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So like, it's such an important thing that I think does get missed in our Western medicine, but as you say, you know, Chinese medicine had it figured out forever that there is an order and a process to how you need to move through this and find what needs to be worked on first. I mean, it's not any different than mechanical, you know, a car. You have to do certain things before you fix certain parts of the car, or you're going to break it.
And you said it exactly. You used the right words. You said, what is the priority issue? And that's what we would ask.
What's the root cause? Yeah.
The root cause. I mean, yes, the root cause. What is the root cause? Well, when we narrow down what it is, the Haleigh at the time needs fixing, I'm like, okay, so we need to fix the upper vertebrae. There's a between C2 and C3. I'm like, oh, great. What's the root cause of that? Is it emotional, or is it structural, or is it, you know, metaphysical? Because we could have a lot of metaphysical things going on, or is it nutritional, emotional, that kind of thing. So we'll run through the categories that it could be. And then when we find one of the categories, I'm like, okay, well, I've got a list of tools to use under each of those categories. Okay, great. So it's emotional. Okay. Do we need to ask more questions? Yeah. Okay. We need to bubble up information as to why that emotion is stuck there. Okay. Is it present life? Yeah. It's present life. Did it come from somebody else? Did it come from a parent? Yes. Okay. So it came from, and then we can narrow down the time it attached to you, or you received it, and from whom it came, and anything else relevant. And then we'll eventually say, did we ask enough? Can we just go ahead and fix it now? Yeah. So then we use the tools necessary to release the stuck emotion, which is often what's called the body code, or the emotion code, from Dr. Bradley Nelson. It's very popular and really easy to use. Once that's released, then we'll say, hey, Haleigh, how's your neck? Ooh, it's a little better, but it feels like it's a little better. And I'm like, okay, well, good. Is there another issue that we can release to correct further into this issue? Yep. Okay, so there's emotional things. We dig more into that. There's metaphysical. Oh, you've got entities. Great. What's the priority? What's the root cause of those entities being there? Oh, there's a hole in your aura. Well, how long is that hole? And so we just keep digging down and it's so much fun. I got to tell you, I just love it.
It's so much fun. Now, listen, no, that's the part that you need to emphasize for people a little bit, because this, I think, is a part of what happens when it comes to this shadow work. And I know it's something that happens for me, right? When you are looking into it and you kind of feel like, well, I'm just digging into the problem and giving more energy to the problem, right? The idea of the law of attraction, right? The teachings of Abraham. When you're like, this is my intellectual problem that I have, is that I do over intellectualize all these things. And so there becomes a little bit of a like, well, you're actually just making it worse by trying to find the problem. Right. So there's that needing to get over that sort of, no, this can be fun. It can be like, think of it as going down a rabbit hole, through a puzzle, through a maze. Think of it as an escape room. Like, you know, frame it however you have to frame it to understand that it doesn't have to be a painful, scary thing to approach, right? Like it can be something that is fun and like, okay, I'm exploring this avatar that I'm currently, like, my consciousness and awareness has decided to be mostly incarnated into. Like, let's go explore what these things are that we can correct, because that is me being invested in my own story, right? In my own character arc, if you will.
Yeah, I have a question to add, actually, to bounce off what Haleigh said. How do we make people more aware of this process? So physically they're struggling like with their pain in their back. So like, okay, let me go to a chiropractor, let me go to the doctor. So how do we get this information out there? Of course, we're on the podcast, right? And Tylee's giving all this amazing and excellent information, but how do we make people more aware to figure out, okay, what's going on with me internally, and how can I figure that out? And then when I'm going to a physician's office or to a chiropractor, how do we create a balance there? Of course, there's big pharma and healthcare, but I feel like now people are becoming a lot more aware by listening to our podcast and, you know, finding out more information about energy healing. So I would love to hear your opinion on that as well.
I am so glad you asked that specific question, because I've never really seen a I've never gone to a chiropractor before, really. And And I've got some back issues from apparently some past life that narrowed down. Now, to your question, the only chiropractor I would go to is one that practices applied kinesiology. And so I looked around and I found one not too far away, and I wanted one because nothing against chiropractors, but they will come and they'll assess how they assess at a very superficial level. Where are the pains? Okay, well, there's a pain, crack it, snap it, pop it into place. How do you feel? Feel great. And then a week later, they're back with the same issues.
Yep. So
an applied kinesiologist will say, okay, well, I can fix that fixation. A fixation is two bones that are stuck together that should be moving. I can fix that fixation, but that's not the root cause. Your body's telling me that the root cause is down at your ankle. So I got to fix that. And I'll snap that, pop that back into place. Oh, it seems that you've got some stuck energy in your spleen area too. So they will address the core primary root causes, so that when you come back, it's not for the same darn thing. They're not snapping the same bones that are out of place. They're out of place because the body's not happy. The body's not happy because, the in between your shoulder blades, that keeps getting stuck, and the chiropractor keeps having to break it open. But the issue is way somewhere else entirely, nothing to do with the structure, the skeleton. So to answer your question, how do we get people aware of it? Now they're aware of it. Applied kinesiology is the street, I guess the official name for it, but the street term is muscle testing. So find a practitioner, a chiropractor. Many chiropractors do this, and make sure you go to one of those people, and they will fix the root cause, and hopefully they'll explain things along the way. So my guy, I found one, and I go to him, and we have an amazing talks, because I'm lit up with questions. So what's going on? How'd the clients go today? And anything cool? And this guy's got really cool things in his office. He's got 3 offices. In each of the offices, he's got crystal tubes, because he's into this, right? Crystal tubes in the corners of the room for to balance the energies. And he's got Aurosoma bottles. Have you ever heard of Aurosoma?
No.
I hadn't heard of it either. But they're bottles.
I love it.
They're bottles of liquid that are separated by density. So you'll have like a light color on the top, a dark color on the bottom, or vice versa. But the bottles themselves have a particular frequency. So the bottles themselves, having them in your proximity, adjust the frequency, but then applying the spray of the content somewhere has another effect. Well, he's got them all across his wall, and he's got biological geometry as well as sacred geometry symbols everywhere. And I'm like, this is really cool. So I brought in.
I love it.
Yeah, I have. It's so cool. I get
incorporating just all the different pieces. Like, I love it. Having the crystals and having the symbols and I mean, it's again, this is such a. I know people hear that and sometimes will think it's like wooey woo, right? And I think that is. We're getting to a cooler place as humanity where we're ready to accept this as medicine again. Again, going back to like Chinese medicine and those energy spheres and things like that. Yeah. What's kind of coming to me is the idea of when you walk into a space like that with someone who does know what they're doing, and it's not wooey woo for the sake of it's new age and it's on trend, right? Like, these people have studied this and they are genuinely interested in helping you. Right. Yeah. Just being in that space and that energy of this person is treating me like an actual patient and not like a customer. The way that big pharma, like, you're a customer, you are a continual source of income.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And they've got their feet in both world, right? They've got them in the Western world, and they've got them in the Eastern world. And we've got the spirituality in between, gluing the whole thing together. And that's kind of who you want working on you.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that the health and wellness space is definitely expanding, of course,
Yeah.
in the Western world, but also in the international world where they are really catching on to these different types of practices, but opening it more of a holistic type of physician's or doctor's office where the crystals and the energy healing is a balance towards the healing of the
Oh yeah.
of the actual patient.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And we're waking up
Mhm.
to more of this understanding where that the practitioners, the doctors of the West that are strictly Western, that are just
Mhm.
fixed symptoms, right? They're becoming a little bit less attractive to, those of us who need healing in various ways that we don't want to go through that. We don't want to because we know that's not going to fix us. That's just going to
Right.
take away the things that are telling us that there's problems that those pills won't address. Those pills are just
Mhm.
Right.
masking it. And like Haleigh, you said, you take some pills and that that hides the shadows, and then the shadows just the shadows are there to show you what needs addressing. And if you hide them under a curtain, they're going to bash the curtain down to get your attention. They're going to get stronger and stronger. So
Right.
that's their design. That's why they're showing you. And when you're ready, you'll address the shadow, do the shadow work.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be ugly. It can be fun, and it is fun when you know what this is capable of, what you're capable
Yeah.
of. And don't have to
Yeah,
go
that's
into it so with so much fear.
Yeah.
well, that's just it, right? And that's, I think, the biggest part of like the being able to talk to your higher self element of this energy healing, right? The who has the best interest for me in mind? Well, I would.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Why would I not want what's best for me? Why would I not
Exactly.
want me to be the happiest version of me that I can be? Why would I not want me to be the most fulfilled human version of me I can be in this experience? I get so much more out of that.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So
and that and that's the higher self also talking you through it as well.
It is. It is. And one thing that I wanted to make sure of is that every time I have a client here, I always teach them a very simple way to muscle test. And the more you do it, the more you become accustomed to it. Like I just use these. So I showed you this as an example, right? If I am in front of you right now, I will use your limb and test your muscle when the stress is or isn't there, and then we navigate that way. But I can also test myself against you, and I will say Haleigh has some priority issues in her upper cervical area that need addressing, and then I'll do a test here. And my test is it will slip like that if it's false, and it'll stick if it's strong, if it's true.
okay.
So there's something
Interesting.
there's something called a galvanic skin resistance, which is like the nails become sticky when you slide them against skin when there's
We
a
have
strong.
Spider-Man capabilities that I
Yes,
didn't know
we
about.
do.
What?
Yes. Oh,
This is
yeah.
exciting. So explain this little test to me. So you can,
Yeah.
and obviously this kind of practice gets you more in tune with getting that conversation with your higher self, right? And sort of
Yes.
trusting the
And
information you get.
well, I'd rather just like to tell you the very simple way. I don't want to go into well, we'll get into this in a second then. I want to show a simple way to muscle test so that anybody listening can just try this at home, and then they'll play with it. Once they play with it, they'll own it. So you'll stand kind of neutral in any position, and so your spine is straight, you're balanced, neutral, and your mind is relatively clear. And then you make a statement. My name is Tylee. And then allow yourself to fall forward or fall backward. My name is Bob. So I can feel myself fall backwards. So typically a true statement will forward, you'll fall forward. A false statement will be backward. So now I don't have any, but trust that to be true. You'll play with it. So listeners, play with that. Just try it out, play with it. Then what you can do is you can take supplements and medications and things and say, hey, this supplement in this case is a crystal, so it's going to light me right up. But hold it against your chest in your heart chakra area and say, is this good for me? And then, you'll fall forward. If it's supplements,
interesting.
Yeah. If it's supplements, you hold it up against yourself and you say, okay, this is make a statement. You can ask questions, is this good for me? Or you can just make a statement. This is good for me. No, this is not good for me. So these supplements are not good for me right now. The energy in this does not mix with the energy in me. It doesn't mean throw them away. It means today, right now, I don't need the supplements in this bottle. And with your medications, like, I'm not going to say don't take your medications. I would say, though, see what this does. Once you understand this, once you get a feel for this testing, the true false, then bring these things into your field and see which way you fall. I have a boatload of supplements. Sorry.
I really love this because this is a way that you can have a conversation with the consciousness that is around you all day, every day. Like, hey, vitamin, tell me whether or not I should have, do you and me vibe right now? Should we be having a relationship? You and the vitamin that, right? And but you can do this also, right? With maybe life circumstances or like this job. Is this job good for me? Right. This relationship, this partnership, this friendship, this opportunity that has presented itself.
Yes. And that's where I was going with it. Once you understand the basic muscle testing thing, and then you trust, this is actually working. This is cool. How cool is that? Okay, now start asking more important questions. Like I do have a bunch of supplements here, and I don't take them all. But I certainly don't take them every day. So I'll test them each day. It's like, no, I don't need them today because I got enough vitamin D in me, or I got vitamin E in me. I don't need it. So I'm not going to just throw them away and take them. But things like what you're mentioning, what about life events? How is this new career opportunity, is that a really good choice for me? Ooh, okay. So that's a good choice. And you can get more granular about it. Should I start on this date? Should I start on that date? Is the relationship I'm in good for me? Is it building me up? Nah, there's something wrong with it. Okay, well then maybe we can break it down into details, and figure out what is wrong. Is it worth repairing? Kind of thing.
Right.
And then use the information how you want. But what I do here, and what I've done for friends and clients, is what about the space in your house? What about the bedroom where you spend so much time during the night? Maybe you have restless nights and you can't sleep. I don't know what it is. I keep waking up. Is it something in the room? Well, is there something in my room that's interfering with my sleep? Oh, there is. Okay. Well, is there a way to fix that? Yes, there is. Should I add something? Should I take something away? No, I got to add something and then narrow it down. Do I need to add a plant? Do I need to add light? Do I need to add an air freshener? Do I need to, go through your list of goodies?
Right.
Or do I need to change the direction of my bed?
Right. Do I need to feng shui this? Do I need to move my furniture around? Should my head be facing north, south, east, west? What's my particular... because that is the other sort of part of it, right? Like, as much as there are the rules of like feng shui, for example, or the order of things, there's still always a specific to you way to do things, right?
Yep.
Like, yes, there are these sort of broad strokes kind of systems you can look at for something like that, crystals or whatever it is. There's still going to be something very specific to you that you need. And that's what we're all trying to look for and find is, what's my particular flavor of this kind of, what's my flavor of this shadow? So I know the healing to pair it with kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the wine that goes with this bread,
Yeah, exactly. And I love this because That's very true. You can follow the general rules of feng shui to balance the house, the room, all those things. But like you're saying, there's a very specific version for Haleigh because your energy is very unique. And for now, based on the energies going on in me right now, on the emotional issues and the physical issues, I need something specific. I might need this crystal sitting at my bed by my head at night for a week. For how long? For a week? For 2 weeks? For 3 weeks? For 3 weeks, right? And then I could take it away. And
isn't that an interesting sort of like treatment plan, though, right?
Yeah.
That, again, we don't take into consideration, right, a different kind of healing availability that doesn't have to be a permanent, you need this crystal always forever for the rest of your life. That's not how anything is. Everything changes, but like right now, maybe you just need this energy to help you be balanced, right?
Yep.
And having the trust that is correct, right? And maybe you can talk a little bit about this. I know we're coming up on an hour, and I do love all of this. Guess what, Tylee? You're gonna have to come back and hang out with us some more. Yes. I know you knew it was gonna happen.
Love this conversation.
I do. If you could maybe talk just a little bit about that, kind of wrap up some of those things. There's a balance here to be had.
I know what you're asking.
Go for it. You know where I'm going.
So it's true. Once you get until you get into full trust of this, you're going to question it, right? That's what we do, and we're very skeptical by nature. So validate your findings as much as you can. So let's say you need to change the energy in the room, and you find that adding a plant over here and a crystal over there is raising the vibration of the room, a palpable change. All right. Hey, Susie, can you go onto the room now and tell me what you feel? Like, does it feel any different without, giving her any kind of indication that you've changed anything? Just tell me what you feel and get a third party perspective on, if you can. Maybe Susie is very sensitive. She went into that room and found, there's something wrong in this room. Okay, well, now I've changed something. Go back in, see what you find. Validate as much as you can until your trust is in place so deeply that I don't need to trust. I know that my answers are correct. And I know, even though it may not feel like that's the right answer, because logically I don't want to break up with so-and-so, but I trust this system. My body knows, my higher self knows. So I've got to do it. I mean, just got to do it and trust that that's the right thing to do. Now, here's the thing. Don't ever be afraid of making mistakes. Of course, take this with a grain of salt, but don't ever be afraid of making mistakes, because sometimes the mistakes are the things that shift you into the direction you need to go. So there is no mistakes.
That is kind of one of the bigger trust things that I think generally for humans we kind of have, right? The idea that when you're uncomfortable, something is wrong, right? Yeah. And it's a bad thing that you feel discomfort, instead of my sensitivity to this discomfort is allowing me to recognize that there is something I need to look at.
Yeah.
Right. So that it's a little bit that sort of reframing, right? That like, it's not a scary thing, even though I feel this sensation as fear. That fear is just telling me, hey, there's something here that you may find difficult to look at, but you do need to look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly. The discomfort or the sensation or the intuition that you're feeling that says something's out of alignment, that's something to pay attention to. Is it a belief system that you have in you that doesn't mesh with the direction you're heading? That's what you need to understand. Is it me or a belief system, or is it the energy of that direction? Well, once you figure that out, that will answer you and put you back on your path. And then that sensation will go away and you'll be back in the flow. You'll be in the flow. It's a beautiful
And that's
thing.
where we all want to be. And that's where things are the easiest, is when you're in the flow of the energy. I have loved this conversation so much. Again, I know we could keep you forever, but tell people where to go find you. We do have your email and links down below, but where would you like to direct people to if they want to contact you, if they want to work with you, if they say, Tylee seems like a great guy who knows what he's doing and I need some healing done, can you please help me? Where do they go find you?
If you go to, if you want the QHHT healing, you can go to the QHHT website and look for practitioners. That's I don't have the full address, but look for QHHT website and look for practitioners, and I'm in there. And there's all sorts of other practitioners if you want one that's a little closer to you. And you can email me directly, tylee.dalton@gmail.com.
And we'll put that in the comments too for folks so they can find you. We do thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Tylee.
Yeah.
I know Alicia's over there with just all new things spinning in her brain. I
have a lot of things downloading. I have a lot of questions and to note. Everything that we have just discussed on this podcast is very valuable. And I'm just happy we're able to channel this message with you and get this information out there, because we're coming into a timeline now where people are kind of sick of living in discomfort and fear, where they're looking for another outlet, and they're becoming more aware and conscious of not living in discomfort anymore as far as a society. So I truly, truly appreciate you coming on here, Tylee. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate what you guys are doing. So thank you for having me on. I look forward to save all your questions, that's what I was going
to say. Keep those all. Tylee is going to be back. Too much to pack into 1 hour. We're definitely going to steal some more of your time to talk more about this. And I know that you're offering it voluntarily. So we thank you for being happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to the audience and everyone who popped in and said hi in the comments and who stopped by. We did have my friend Tat, and we had Mark Davis in here. Thanks, folks, for coming on in. And thank you. We'll have another wonderful conversation with Tylee very soon, and I'm very excited about it.
Yes. Peace and love.
Peace and love, y'all. Thanks so much, and have a good one.